Morning.
Good morning. It's been so long. How are you doing?
Oh, and I don't know if you've heard my latest tale of woe. I tore the Achilles tendon off my heel.
Ooh.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Okay.
And I'm still stuck at home
Oh
in
no.
Washington. But it's coming to an end in a few weeks, so we're through the worst.
Okay. Well, Mary Jo, I'm glad to hear you're getting better. I have my class here with me. I'm going to turn you around so you can see some of them and not just look at me.
Okay.
But this is our new class. And hello, everybody. This is Mary Jo. Let's see if I can get this going on.
Oh, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
There's more, but I can't get all of them in there.
Okay. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Mary Jo Hayes. I graduated from Dragon Rises in 2006. Before that, I have been working as a researcher in ecology. That's where the PhD comes from. And I fell in love with the pulse. That is why I went. I was looking at schools. I decided midlife crisis. I wanted a new career, and I was looking at acupuncture because it had literally saved my life. And I was looking at a school downstate, one in Colorado, and Dragon Rises had an open house. And I figured, in town, how big could that be? I'll check it out. And I met Dr. Hammer. And I don't know if any of you have met Marcy. She's a supervisor in the clinic. But she came up and introduced herself at that open house and said, "You can't believe what this pulse does." And she was telling me what you could see and do with it. And I was pretty shocked. I had never heard anything like that before. And so then I met Dr. Hammer, and I suddenly realized I had the opportunity to attend a school with a world master, not just any TCM school, but a school that had a huge heritage, an incredible gift, and it was here in Gainesville. So that's why I decided to attend. I'll be honest, when I showed up at school, I was the dead cat drug in from the storm. I was in pretty bad shape, but I was fidgety. I just couldn't stay home anymore. And they said, "Well, come and see if we can help you get well, and then you can continue." And okay, what the hell? And I realized that every term I actually was getting better. I was stronger, I had less pain, and it was because I was getting treated by COM's theory with Chinese herbs and acupuncture. And it was customized to me, and I could see I started in January, and by May I couldn't believe how much better I felt. And it was so gradual that I had to stop and think about it, because all of a sudden I didn't have pelvic arthritis, and I didn't have tendonitis, and I wasn't sick all the time. It was amazing to see that kind of recovery. So I will tell you, I had been getting acupuncture for about a year and a half every week before then, and it had done a lot of good for me. But I got much better in that next year at school. So that's what sold me on on contemporary Oriental medicine. And since then, I have taught at the school. I retired in 2018, and then I was part of the foundation that owns the school since its inception. And then about a year and a half ago, I took on the leadership of the governing board, and have been trying to get things better and better for the students, moving us forward as much as we can. So that's who I am. What Dr. Hammer asked me to tell you about is my experience when I graduated. Now, when I was at the school, it's my background, I guess, but I was going to get everything I could for my dollar. By God, I was getting it all. And so I was super attentive to the pulse, In clinic, I insisted on doing a full pulse with every single patient, which is like 700 times, because I knew I had supervisors that were competent that could correct me. And I knew that it's easy to get the diagnostic interpretations of the pulse depends on your accuracy at taking it. So it's easy to get rough vibration and choppy mixed up in the beginning, or differentiating smooth vibration and rough vibration. There are nuances that if you get them, the difference between cotton and, oh shoot. Anyway, there's points of sophistication in the pulse. And if you don't get them, well, then you don't have a good diagnosis. And I wanted to be as good as I could be. When it got to learning about the diagnostic technique, and I found it irritating because it's very tedious, but I put my shoulder to it and I pushed through to master it. Because this was what the master set before me. And I recognized who I had in my teacher, in my lineage. So the school has now existed for 20 years, and you now have more than one person who's really good at the pulse and at the diagnostic technique. And it was hard to do it. I did it because I was in love with the legacy. I was in love with Dr. Hammer's work. And I could see it was impressive. He is recognized worldwide by almost every other master out there. It's who he counts as close friends are people we read about. So I wanted to be good at this because that's what's going to be my career for the second half of my life. And I don't believe in doing anything by half measures. I try my best. Well, my experience was when I graduated and I was about to go out into the cold, cruel world by myself with no supervisor right there and no teacher right there, I was terrified. I thought, I'm going to go out and make a fool of myself. Oh my God. But what happened was, I realized with every patient, I just went back to the fundamentals. I did a very good pulse. I did as good an intake as I could. And realized the point of the whole diagnostic procedure is to help you to eliminate false leads, to get down to the root, the true cause. And what can stand in your way is your own bias. Like, I am seriously Essence Young deficient. Everybody I see is Essence Young deficient. Not necessarily their root, but you push onto other people what you feel. So part of the diagnostic process is to eliminate that, to help you not put your bias into the diagnosis, and also to expand your thinking to a more global level about what's possible. So having gotten my foothold into that, I did every patient the same way. I put every bit of energy into it that I could. And I was amazed. I didn't have a case that I didn't know what to do with. I took my time and I used the diagnostic skills I'd learned, and I was doing pretty well. Well, I had an open house to start. I got 7 new patients. I was pretty excited. And then I kept getting patients. And I would ask them, so I had patients coming 125 miles away. And I'm like in shock. I am a new practitioner. What are these people driving 125 miles each way to see me? And what they would say is, oh, I talked to your patient who lived midway between. So it'd be somebody that was down in Lake City but knew somebody up in Georgia. And then I got people coming from Jacksonville. I had people coming from Orlando and Tampa. And I'm a new practitioner. And what they all said is that other patient of mine had said, she'll get to the root. She will get an honest diagnosis and she'll be able to treat you. And I'm a brand new practitioner. What the heck? This stunned me that I was getting that much attention in my first year. And I built a really good reputation on getting to the root. And that is a complicated matter. Humans are not just blood chemistry and x-rays. We're a much more diverse set of information. And that's what Oriental medicine and calm helps you to really master. So we look at the tongue, we look at the ear, we take the pulse. Some people are able to look at the foot or the hand, depending on the microsystem they have mastered. And we hear, very important, with the third ear, and we see with the third eye, which in English parlance is equivalent to saying to read between the lines. So you see, a person says, my mother died, and my mother died last week, ha ha ha. And you go, what? It didn't match. So you're reading for consistency, and you're paying attention to what the person is honestly saying, and not just the words. The more you do that, the more obvious it becomes. It really does become obvious. And so, using all of my senses, using all of the skills that I had learned, I was amazed how effective I was at making a good diagnosis. As Dr. Hammer says, once you have a good diagnosis, there are 1,000 techniques to treat it. The key is make a good diagnosis, and then you're going to be successful because you're treating the real thing. If you don't diagnose successfully, then no technique, nothing is going to make much of a difference. And that's the secret to the diagnostic procedures that Dr. Hammer developed. What he said to us in class was, I want you to learn to think like an Oriental physician and not a Western practitioner, because your degree is in Oriental medicine, not Western medicine. So we have our own diagnostic skill sets. To use them maximally, to use them to our best advantage, takes practice and training. You will get plenty of that at Dragon Rises if you invest in it. I've been a teacher for over 50 years, and there's an old saying in teaching, well, there's this old saying, so you can't lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Teachers used to say, even if I drilled a hole in their head, I can't force the information in. Students have to want to actively consume it. And so that's your job over the next 3 years, is to seek out and learn everything you are paying for and everything that you have the opportunity to learn. Once you've graduated, you will be taking seminars, hopefully for the rest of your life. You have to keep your license, but you're going to be interested. And you'll learn lots of new techniques, and you'll learn new perspectives and new studies. But if your foundation that you get here is strong, if you built up a good, strong understanding, then everything else has someplace to hang. Everything else works. But if you can't make a good diagnosis, none of that's going to be really effective. So for me, my practice got off and running, and for Gainesville, trust me, that's really, really hard. I had a half-time practice by my second year, and that was, to me, really amazing. Most of my classmates all have very successful careers now, and I would like to point out that statistics say 70% of the people who get licensed in acupuncture, not just graduate, licensed from acupuncture, are not in practice 5 years later. And that difference is they can't make a decent diagnosis. It's not taught in the same way in any other school that I know of. And that's the gift here. So you've got the pulse, which is an incredible diagnostic tool, but you have the logic behind it and the reasoning And that is what will make you into a very successful, financially successful, respected practitioner. And so that's my little spiel that Dr. Hammer asked me to deliver, because I experienced it and I believe it. And one more comment. So when you get to the learning the diagnostic procedure, doing the symptom condition, doing the diagnostic catalog, they're tedious. They are irritating because you think, I already know all this stuff. Why do I have to do all these in-between steps? I know what I'm doing. But if you actually put your mind to it, you realize that when you're doing them, you realize, well, this symptom could also be from this condition or this other condition. So you write them all down. And then you go to the next symptom and you do that. And you do it all the way down that page. And then you suddenly go, oh, gee, it's not kidney young essence deficiency, which would be my first diagnosis for everybody. Oh no, we have got lung heart disharmony. Oh, we've got this or the other that I would not have seen because of my bias. So this process of thinking it through over and over again starts opening your brain to a more diversified possibilities. When you organize it in the diagnostic catalog, suddenly you're putting the pulse in and the ear in and the history in and the symptoms and the whole story, and it comes together as a real person. And it's once you get to that point, it's kind of exciting because you get a perspective you wouldn't have come to necessarily on your own. So I will tell you that I don't do that for every single patient. The ones that come and say something like, Doc, just fix my tennis elbow. Okay, I'll just fix their tennis elbow. But while they're coming that 4 or 5 times till we get the tennis elbow all resolved, I'm telling them about Chinese medical understanding of health. I'm telling you about yin and yang and blood and yin and qi. I remember them all. Okay. The point is I'm educating them about general Chinese medicine, but them in particular. So then I start asking, it's obvious they're tennis elbows because they're blood deficient and the tendons are not being well fed. Okay? So then I start talking to them about, well, did you ever have tendonitis somewhere else? Oh yeah, I've had it in my hip, and I got this problem in my foot. And I said, well, they keep coming back because your root has not been addressed. And I do it nice, I'm very kind. I don't talk, I don't preach. I try to really talk to them about it and get their perspective. But I help them see that they're just in a repeat cycle. And this time happens to be the elbow. Next time it'll be a shoulder or a knee. And about 75%, 80% say, okay, I really want to fix this. Once they are committed to fixing it, then I'm going to make a real commitment to them. We're going to do the full in-depth intake. And I always do a complete pulse because I'm never going to assign an herb formula to someone that I haven't seen a complete good pulse for. But I'll do the full intake, which takes several hours, and I'll put in the extra few hours to do the cataloging and diagnostic procedure. And then I know who that patient is. And I may get them much better, and then they go off to do something else in their life or move away, show up 5 years later. I pull out their file, and I've got who they are, what their root issue is. I don't have to go through the whole thing again. I know who they are. I may do some reevaluation of current history, certainly a good pulse, tongue, ear, but I already know that person. And I am now very effective at treating them again. And that's how I got the reputation for getting to the root, for really treating. So I'm going to say that you're going to find doing that work irritating and boring because it's forcing you to do stuff that you think you already know, only you don't know. And I'm going to ask you to have faith and put in the really good effort, and that will give you the skill set to be an actual Oriental physician and not a technician. Too many acupuncturists are technicians. They have a technique, There's hundreds and hundreds of techniques. Once you are trained in the diagnosis, that's what makes you a physician. In a physician's office, you go in, the physician, quote, makes a diagnosis, and then they have their nurse or a PT or somebody else carry it out. That's their technicians. The physician is the one who makes the diagnosis and plans the strategy and takes responsibility for it. And that's what that's what the true calling is in Oriental medicine, to be that physician. And you have the opportunity, and it is extremely rare, to have this kind of training in diagnosis, this kind of training in the pulse. Other people get weekends of the pulse. They may go 2, 3, 4, 5 years getting to what you will have at the end of 2. Okay? There's no place I know that teaches this kind of diagnostic rigor. This is what makes us really important. Okay, so I've used up considerable of our time talking, but do you have any questions?
I do.
Anybody? I've just monopolized it, but...
You can go on up.
Yeah.
Here we go. Someone's coming up for you. Tap on the floor.
Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Hi. So for the diagnostic catalog and the intake, is that something that you added on to as time went on, or did you just take it straight from Dr. Hammer and from what is done in the college?
That is what I actually learned at the college.
Okay.
That is the center of his diagnostic protocol. And I have to tell y'all, I figured this out years later. Was anybody here ever watched the TV show called House?
Yeah.
About the sort of crazy doctor but really good at diagnosis? Him. And I watched there is a differential diagnosis pattern. And if you watch that, his interns, he'd say, well, here's the symptoms, and we got this, lab result. What do you think? And the one would say, oh, it's got to be this, oh, it's got to be that, oh, it's got to be this other thing. And then they reason it out. No, this symptom doesn't match. No, that doesn't work. That was how Dr. Hammer, who is a Western MD Cornell graduate, who then went into psychiatry, he got differential diagnosis as his second mind. It was normal for him. When he studied Oriental medicine and all the symptoms and conditions in it, he immediately started trying to sort it out to make a better diagnosis. And so he went back to the Western concept, strategy of differential diagnosis. And the point of the symptom, condition, and diagnostic catalog is to teach you how to do that. So in House, Dr. Hammer is, I'm screaming at his interns, oh, you're wrong, la, 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 la. And he's very melodramatic. It's a big deal. And yes, Dr. Hammer is a very methodical, organized person. And so when he worked with his students, including me, he would say, no, think about this, what about this, this symptom doesn't work. He would go on and on about what didn't work. And so it's learning to do the logic. You have had no experience in that logic. And that's what you're going to learn in when you get to the CDM 303, 304, you will learn diagnostic technique, the procedures. And by that time you'll have a pretty good background of what makes COM unique in theory. So Dr. Shen, Dr. Hammer's mentor, used to say all the time, book wrong. And what he meant is, if the book didn't match the reality in front of you, the reality is still reality, the book has to be wrong. So there were a number of conditions in Chinese medicine that just didn't work out, didn't match the pulse, the theory behind them didn't work for treatment, and Dr. Hammer, over time, collected from other masters, not just his own creation, and then wove together whole concept packages. So we have in COM, we have a unique understanding of the liver that you will not find anywhere else in Chinese medicine. We have a theory of ecology, human ecology, that is unique. We have, I'm trying to think right now, and I have to be honest, this morning is not my best time, but we have about 50, 60 concepts altogether that are different than the rest of TCM. And why they're different is that they actually work. And people, this is general, not just Chinese medicine, people like to think about something and think, oh, that must be right, it's logical, and they don't test it. They don't check it out, they don't evaluate it. And sometimes that can go on for a long time, especially if it's coming from some great master. And what Dr. Hammer had done is he realized there was stuff that just didn't work. And he ran it through his clinic for 40 years, verifying that his idea worked before he ever taught it. He has had students, disciples, studying with him for 25, 30 years now, and he's had them evaluated in their clinic. So we're actually talking about hundreds or thousands of evaluations of these principles. And they are totally valid. And before I confuse you totally, I'm going to take all my time, I'm sorry. Before I leave this, I was a science teacher for many years, and I used to teach in my middle school classes about atomic models. So you know there is the photon model, right? And energy is all light, just moving along in a wave. And then there is the photon model that says it's no little particles that just bounce along. So we have photons or waves. Sometimes the photon theory works better at describing what's going on than the wave theory. And sometimes the wave theory is better than the photon theory. They both work in their certain areas. And I don't think that physicists have really figured out what's the magic between the two, but it's just a fact. So in science, we understand that models are ways to explain what you have seen and predict what's going to happen next. That's the function of a model. So I'd like you to think about the concepts that you learn in COM as a model of those issues, and what you will learn in TCM, Machiosa, as also a model. And sometimes one fits better with your case than the other. And that's practice and experience. But I want to emphasize that the ones that Dr. Hammer has provided have all been bench tested, have all been clinically evaluated hundreds and thousands of times before they got to the point where he was teaching them. So what we have is two good systems, and I study Japanese Toyohari. They also have their own model, and I keep them separate. Sometimes this one looks like a better fit, that one looks like a better fit, and it gives me options. It gives me a lot of options. Saying everything has to be homogenized into one pot, you give up all those options. Don't throw any baby out until you've had it thoroughly tested. So as you go into your practice, you're going to try one, and you say, well, this is what this theory says I should do, but it didn't work with this patient. Why didn't it work with this patient? And you go back and you look at the data, and you look at your pulse, you look at the progress the patient made. What went wrong? Why didn't it work right? Very opposite. Very often it's what the patient has done. So Dr. Shen would say something like, patients would come in not any better after 3 or 4 weeks, and he'd say, what you do? It was their fault, not his, obviously. But it is true that about 80% of what's wrong with us has to do with our lifestyle. Sleep patterns, eating patterns, what we eat, activity patterns, social patterns. Do we socialize enough? Are we just too driven? What do we do? Do we give ourselves quiet meditation time? All those things that Western medicine doesn't even look at anymore Those are a big source of what's wrong with most people. So that is where this system, learning calm, really investing in it, you get an insight, you get the ability to see it, you get the bigger picture. It's not just that patient in front of you with a sprained ankle. You're looking at that patient and going, oh yes, they've got a sprained ankle, but you can tell that they've had trouble with walking, and oh, their hips aren't straight. You start seeing the whole human being. You see somebody who maybe is driving themselves way too hard because they're trying to be wife, mother, work full-time, on and on. Or you see a dad who's working job and a half, or has got taking care of his parents while he's taking care of his family. All kinds of stuff happen. Bad marriage relationship, being demeaned by the partner. It's just all kinds of stuff that never comes into a conversation with any other doctor, but will with you. And that's because we see people as the whole person. And so the symptom condition chart, diagnostic catalog, is helping you put all of the stuff about that whole person together. And it is the learning process. So, did that answer your question?
It did, yes, thank you. Mary Jo, they don't learn the diagnostic process until CDM later on, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I'm just trying to let them know about the challenges to come. They're not going to learn that till later, but they should. What concerns me as a teacher at Dragon Rises is so many students did not. They were there just to get a degree because they didn't care about learning anything. They wanted to get their degree so they get licensed. And those are the people that have a damn hard time building a practice. I'm hoping with talking to you all to help you see the future and the possibilities that Dragon Rises has. It's a unique institution. There is no place else that's going to give you that diagnostic protocol, teach you how to think like an Oriental physician so you don't become trapped as a technician. The pulse is extremely important, but how you think about it is even more important. There's hundreds and hundreds of clues that the human gives out. Yes, we use the ear, the eye, the facial diagnosis, the tongue, the pulse. We have lots of techniques to take in data. And the pulse is extremely well developed. The ear diagnosis is extremely well developed. Others are useful. Tongue is moderately well developed. You have all these things. But then when you learn to hear with the third ear, see with the third eye, you start seeing the whole person. And when you do, then you have an incredibly good probability of making a good diagnosis. Now, I'll tell you that sometimes I have not diagnosed correctly, but I know I haven't if that patient has made some kind of significant progress in a month. If the herbs aren't working and the acupuncture is just taking the edge off, I've done something wrong. But you know what? I got all those notes. So I go back and I re-look at my symptom condition chart, and I re-look at the diagnostic catalog, and I figure out what I did wrong. I don't have to live with that failure. I had a friend, Alan, Alan Nimes. He was the pediatric doctor at Shands until recently when he retired. He was the head of their complementary medicine section. And he and I were discussing one time, and he says, so Mary Jo, what do you think your odds are of success with all of your patients? And I said, somewhere between 90-95%. If they keep staying with me when I made a mistake, and I can correct it, 90-95%. And he says, that's impossible. Western medicine can't help for more than 60 or 65. Well, yeah, because they're only working with labs and x-rays. They're not working with the Shen and how it looks, and all the zillions of clues that the person is giving you as to what they're really suffering from. And Western medicine has tended to be more symptomatic driven than root driven. And I want you to realize that Western medicine as we know it has only been around since 1830. That is when modern Western medicine was discovered or invented. Chinese medicine's been around 5,000 years with a great deal of continuity. And not just in China, but in Japan and in Korea. It's vast, it's huge. So, and they've always been methodical. That's part of the nature of the Chinese, to document, and methodically organize things. And so they get to see the great patterns that have held up all these centuries. In Western diagnosis, you might get, oh, the person has MS. Oh, that's the problem. But the doctors don't ever ask, well, why did this person get MS? What was the root of that? What's driving this person into that condition? Right? They don't ask it. We ask that. That is what makes us remarkable, amazing. And I will say you get really devoted patients because they get to be seen and heard by you. And the majority of their existence, they are not seen or heard at all. So what I'm trying to give you is the big view of COM. You're not going to be doing diagnostic catalogs or symptom conditions, well, till your second year. And I think it's in your 5th semester or 4th semester. Anyway, it's there. So you've got some time, but I want you to start thinking about that and start taking advantage of every learning opportunity you have from students in clinic talking about stuff, your faculty talking about things. Reading, you have an opportunity to, Dr. Hammer's got like 50 articles, and he's now got 5 new books. That's not counting the Pulse book. Either one of the Pulse books. There's 2 Pulse books. They're rewriting the Pulse book, by the way, and the patient practitioner book, or Dragon Rises, Redbird Flies. Those are separate from the new books that have just come out. The lifestyle book and the book on the Sanjiao should get out in print this year. COVID has done a terrible thing to the editorial staff, but we're getting that done. So there is a lot of material out there that on your own, while you're in the environment, while you can ask the questions, while you can be interactive, this is your time to take as much in as you can of this very special, very powerful system. This is it. You're putting your money down. You're putting your life on hold to do this. You're here for 3 years, okay? Take advantage of where you are. Try to take in all of what makes Dragon Rises special. And that's my message that I was trying to give you just now.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Okay. If you have, if any of you would like to interact with me more, have more questions, Shannon can give you my email address, and I'm happy to discuss more of this, or anything you want to talk about Chinese medicine. The school is important to me. Your education is extremely important to me. I want to make sure it's the best experience you can possibly have. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.